Trump ramps up pressure and the timeline for Putin to make peace with Ukraine.
I'm not so interested in talking anymore.
Plus, the president addresses food shortages in Gaza.
I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire executive editor John Bickley. It's Tuesday, July 29th, and this is Morning Wire.
Video of a brutal street fight at a Cincinnati music festival goes viral, sparking questions about race and violence.
The rates of interracial crime are way on the side of blacks beating up whites. And people experience this, they see it, but they're not allowed to talk about it.
And Trump's new executive order, which aims to save college sports, is met with both praise and backlash.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
Let's be honest, even when we're trying our best, most of us still aren't getting enough fruits, vegetables, and fiber in our diet. That's where Balance of Nature comes in. Their fruit supplement is packed with mango, pineapple, wild blueberries, banana, and more, and it tastes amazing mixed into your morning oatmeal, yogurt, or smoothies. Their veggie supplement has powerhouse ingredients like kale, spinach, broccoli, and even shiitake mushrooms, making it easy to add on salads, soups, and savory dishes. And here's what's really cool. They've got this fiber and spice blend that's the only supplement combining 12 spices with 4 whole fibers. What I appreciate most is how convenient they are. No bags, no mess, no measuring, just clean, quality ingredients I can take anywhere. Plus, everything is vegan, kosher, and gluten-free, and they back it all up with independent third-party lab testing. I can rest easy knowing I'm investing in myself and my health. Head over to balanceofnature.com and use promo code WIRE for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer, plus get a free bottle of that fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code WIRE.
President Trump said Monday that he would shorten the deadline for Russia to end its war on Ukraine, while also breaking with Prime Minister Netanyahu over the conflict in Gaza.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips is here now with more. So Cabot, let's start with Ukraine. Negotiations have been breaking down there recently. Where do things stand now?
So as we mentioned yesterday, President Trump has now brokered ceasefires all around the world. First, there was India and Pakistan, then Rwanda and the Congo, then Iran and Israel, and finally Cambodia and Thailand, which went into effect yesterday. The White House says that he would have a Nobel Peace Prize by now if he were a Democrat, but despite his best efforts and a campaign promise to end the war on day one, the fighting in Ukraine continues. And the president's patience with Vladimir Putin is clearly beginning to wane. Earlier this month, he gave the Russian leader 50 days to sign on to a ceasefire, and then days later, he upped the pressure by selling billions of dollars in new weapons to NATO. But yesterday, as Putin continued his barrage on Ukrainian cities, Trump announced that he would shorten that 50-day timeline.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
Now, what do we expect the response is going to be if Putin does not move forward with this negotiation?
Well, first, Trump could always increase the amount of military aid and equipment going to the Ukrainians. But there are plenty of foreign policy experts who say even with an influx of weapons, it will be difficult for Ukraine to really turn the tide of the war. And that strategy is also not very popular with Trump's base, many of whom want to cut off new aid for Ukraine entirely. So that leaves economic retaliation. President Trump has in the past hinted that he would impose 100% tariffs on Russia if they had not met that deadline, and also that he would add secondary tariffs, which would impact anyone who trades with them. The goal there would be to isolate Moscow economically by punishing anyone who does business with them. But the problem on that front is that it could mean considerably higher tariffs on India and China specifically, two countries the U.S. has been working on a trade deal with for months. And for obvious reasons, these additional tariffs could kill a deal and leave us in a long-term trade war with two of our largest trading partners.
So let's get to the other major conflict going on in Gaza. President Trump broke with Netanyahu recently. Tell us about that.
Yeah, since taking office, President Trump, while urging Israel and Hamas to reach a peace deal, has still overwhelmingly sided with the Israelis, saying Hamas is essentially bringing the war on themselves by refusing to release all of their hostages. But on Monday, Trump took a rare jab at Israel. Listen to this response when he was asked if he agrees with Prime Minister Netanyahu's claim that there is, quote, no starvation in Gaza.
I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly, because those children look very hungry.
Now, again, for their part, the Israelis say that if anyone is starving, it's because Hamas is hoarding humanitarian aid or outright blocking civilians from accessing it. But regardless, Trump made clear that whoever is to blame, it cannot continue. Here he is saying the U.S. would work with European allies to set up new food distribution centers across Gaza.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved.
And one final note on all of this, the American people do seem right now to prefer President Trump's foreign policy over his predecessor. A new poll this week from the Wall Street Journal found that voters trust the GOP over Democrats on foreign policy by an 8-point margin.
Well, not surprising given what you mentioned at the top. He's been on a good streak. Cabot, thanks for reporting.
Absolutely.
In those moments when money isn't moving as fast as your life is, Earnin helps give you the financial momentum you need to keep moving forward. Earnin is an app that lets you access your pay as you earn it up to $150 a day with a max of $750 between paydays. No interest, no credit check, and no mandatory fees. Imagine a night out with friends, a mere 2 days before payday, and you're a little short. Earnin's got you. Download Earnin today, spelled E-A-R-N-I-N, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in Morning Wire under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. That's Morning Wire under podcasts. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and do not affect the service. Available in selected states. Terms and restrictions do apply. Visit earnin.com for full details. Download Earnin now and take control of your pay.
A street mob in Cincinnati brutally beat up a man and woman on Saturday night, and police were nowhere to be seen. Video of the altercation swept the internet, but the story died in the media, leaving many wondering why.
Here with us to break down the Cincinnati Brawl is Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce. So, Tim, I was unable to watch this video. It was so violent. What do we know about this incident?
Yeah, it's graphic and disturbing, and nobody can blame you for not being able to watch it. It all went down late Saturday on the final night of the Cincinnati Music Festival. And there's still a lot we don't know due to minimal news coverage. But one video in particular has gotten a lot of attention online. As you said, it is disturbing. It shows one man being thrown to the ground and beaten by a group of what appears to be mostly black men, kicking, punching, stopping, all while witnesses film and jeer at the man on the ground. Then a woman steps in, and she seems to be trying to protect the man from further harm when a black man sucker punches her in the face. She falls to the ground, hitting her head on the concrete, and she appears unconscious with her eyes open, blood streaming from her nose. After a few moments, a couple people help her sit up, and that's where the video ends. Now, it's worth emphasizing that this happened in downtown Cincinnati in the middle of a massive music festival, but there were no police around in the 2.5 minutes of the video. That fact got special mention from Cincinnati Fraternal Order of Police President Ken Kober, who condemned the witnesses in a statement. He called the violence disgusting and added, quote, "What's equally disgusting is those who chose to watch and record instead of calling 911, attempting to defuse the situation or render aid."
Right, and that's the most shocking part and probably why it went viral online.
Yeah, it was shared widely. It's gotten a lot of traction online. In fact, even Vice President J.D. Vance weighed in.
We've had way too much lawlessness on the streets of great American cities. If you want to take your wife or your children out for a meal, you shouldn't be worried about street violence. And the only way to destroy that street violence is to take the thugs who engage in that violence and throw their asses in prison.
Harmeet Dillon, who heads the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, took notice of it and said that where race is a motivation, federal law may apply. We've also seen responses from Elon Musk, who pointed out the lack of attention from national outlets, and Vivek Ramaswamy, a candidate for governor, who actually spoke with the female victim and called the lack of police presence unconscionable. The Cincinnati mayor, a Democrat, finally issued a statement on Monday calling the brawl horrifying to watch and said the perpetrators will be brought to justice. In fact, Cincinnati's police chief announced yesterday that 5 suspects have been arrested. But to Musk's point, it's worth noting that many legacy and left-wing national outlets ignored the story when it broke.
And why did they consider this not newsworthy?
We asked Heather McDonald, author of several books on race and policing, including When Race Trumps Merit, about the media. Here's what she said.
Black on black homicides get no coverage. Black on white attacks get no coverage. You know, the media is racist. The only black lives they care about are those extremely rare instances where a white police officer has taken the life of a black person. Those become international, global sensations overnight. in 2023, the National Academy of Sciences, which is about as establishment and liberal as you can get, came out with a report on crime that said that white on black homicides are virtually non-existent. Whites are virtually never killing blacks, whereas blacks commit violent crime against whites at 35 times the rate at which whites commit violent crime against blacks. If you want to look at who's committing hate crimes against gays, against Asians, against Jews, it's overwhelmingly blacks, not whites, and yet we're told just the opposite. And the narrative that is embraced by the media cannot help but create in some people a sense of entitlement to strike back at their alleged oppressor. Whites are effectively dehumanized by the media when it comes to race relations.
There's still a lot to learn here. We'll see if Dylan at DOJ gets involved on any potentially racially motivated crimes.
Tim, thanks for reporting.
Thanks for having me on.
President Trump has signed an executive order that aims to, quote, save college sports by providing some guardrails for the tumultuous landscape of college athletics.
And to no one's surprise, the order has been met with both praise and criticism. Joining us now to discuss is David Cohn from the Crane and Company Show. Dave, always good to have you on.
Thank you.
So first, how did we get here? Why is Trump signing this order now?
So there are several facets to this order, a key one being how colleges handle paying athletes directly, which obviously is a very charged issue to say the least.
Yeah.
As you know, John, throughout the history of college sports, not only could the athletes not be paid, but they were prohibited from signing endorsement deals and, monetizing their likeness, essentially. That has changed in recent years due to these class action antitrust lawsuits, such as O'Bannon v. NCAA, Alston v. NCAA. Now student athletes can profit from their name, image, and likeness, what we call NIL, as well as partake in revenue sharing directly with the universities. And this is following that House v. NCAA settlement that we reported on here. The NCAA has long lobbied Congress for several years to get some sort of antitrust exemption, but to no avail. So President Trump has stepped in with an executive order to, as titled, Save College Sports.
So what does the order say about NIL deals and paying athletes?
It takes that issue on directly. In fact, here, point number 2 of the executive order states, and I'm quoting, the order prohibits third-party pay-for-play payments to college athletes. This does not apply to legitimate fair market value compensation that a third party provides to an athlete, such as for a brand endorsement. The problem with the executive order's language is that it already exists. It's already against NCAA rules for third parties to compensate recruits for their play. The workaround has always been the name, image, and likeness language. So while this executive order does make mention of the term fair market value, as we know, valuation is completely subjective. And another main question here arising from the order is who would even enforce that, right? A new enforcement arm called the College Sports Commission has been formed, and their purpose, and this is directly from their website, is to facilitate revenue sharing in college sports and to ensure that NIL deals are fair and comply with the rules. What is their relationship going to be with the NCAA? That remains to be seen.
Right. So lots of questions still remain. So as to the criticism of the order, what are the critics saying?
Well, that Donald Trump shouldn't be weighing in on this issue and that, student athletes will actually be limited on how much that they can make now. Actually, one of the attorneys representing the plaintiffs in that big antitrust settlement with the NCAA accused Trump of, and this is quote here, aiding the NCAA at the expense of athletes. But clearly many people disagree because the problem so far is that it has become the wild, wild west and really is unsustainable for schools, the donors, and really even the college athletes who are benefiting right now. Some rules and regulations would be great for everyone.
All right, so another question that's addressed in this order, as I understand it, is women's sports and the non-revenue generating sports. What does it say about them?
Point 1 says that the order, quote, requires requires the preservation and, where possible, the expansion of opportunities for scholarships and collegiate athletic competition in women's and non-revenue sports. Now that athletic departments must pay athletes, there are higher costs, particularly associated with football and basketball. And those are the two sports that drive revenue more than any of the other sports. The NCAA, President Trump, they see these non-revenue generating sports as really a national interest. They serve as a pipeline to the Olympics. One final point that I'll make on the executive order is that while many questions do remain, the Trump administration is at least attempting to provide some sort of federal framework here.
As you said, this has been unsustainable as it is. Something's got to change. Let's hope some progress is made. Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We'll be back later this evening with more news you need to know.